So I got myself a new table saw. Okay, it's new to me. It's an old table saw, but if you've been watching my channel long at all, you know that I like old tools. So anyway, this is an old Craftsman 100, made by Sears and Roebuck, and I haven't looked up the serial number on it yet, but I'm going to guess this is late 50s, early 60s, not 100% sure. But anyway, it's got the cast iron top. It's got a pressed metal side, which makes me think it's more toward the 60s. But it also has one of the cast iron sides. So I don't know. This could be a mixture of different saws as far as that goes. The motor is fairly new. This is not an original motor, and that's fine. That's kind of like okay. I need to make some adjustments to it because as it is moving up and down, they've got it set to tighten here, and so it's like tight. The belts are nice and tight right now, but as soon as you lower the blade, because the blade's in the up position right now, as soon as you start lowering it, they get loose and then they tighten up again. So it's not set up quite right, so I got to do some fixing on that. And that's kind of what I'm actually doing this video for, is I'm going to show how to tweak the table saw. The blade is not quite parallel with the oh, what do you call these channels on the top of the table saw? Miter slots. It's not quite parallel with them. In fact, if you look along the edge of this, you can see how it's kind of not in quite right. So we're going to fix that. And the table itself is actually not solidly bolted to the casing, so we're going to have to fix that. It's missing some bolts, actually. There's bolt holes, but no bolts. There's two bolts. There's a nut and a stud here, and a nut and a stud up there, and in that corner. But there's a bolt hole here and a bolt hole in the other corner up in the front that have no bolts, so I'm going to have to find bolts for that. A couple small things, and then I'll probably do another video on cleaning it up, and I want to build a miter table for it. So anyway, with that, I will get, oh, there's another thing I have to fix. If I can get low enough here. The wheel that makes the blade tilt is gone, and this is chewed all to dickens. So I'm going to probably make a thing that slides onto that and weld it, and gives me a new stud out here, and then I'll make a wheel for that. So that I might be doing that off camera or in another separate video or something. I doubt that I'll do that today. Anyway, let's get to work. Okay, so first things first, I got to figure out how far out of whack I am here, how far out of alignment I am to these, to the guide slots. So I'm going to use a caliper, set of calipers here, and I'm going to hook the inside of this part, and then I want to touch the blade. I don't want to hit the carbide. If I was measuring to cut wood, I would measure to the carbide, but for this, I'm going to measure to the plate of the blade. So that puts us at, well, it's 104 millimeters, 4 and roughly 3/16. I'm not reading that very well. Don't have my glasses on. And I put it on the back, and you can see the gap. Nice. So that's how far it's tweaked out this way. So I need to adjust that. And to do that, there's 4 bolts that hold this whole apparatus onto the bottom of this. They'll have to be loosened, get it adjusted, and then get it to stay adjusted as you tighten them, because it wants to move when you tighten them. So anyway, we're going to get under there and work on that now. Okay, so back here at the back of it, it's real easy to find them. They're here and here. There's 2 similar ones up at the front. However, the one on this side is on behind the belt, and it's a little hard to get to. So that one will be having to do some finagling. But we get out the socket, and we're going to see if we can get these loose. Oh, that's already loose. Well, that would explain why it's partially why it's doing that. Yeah, they all seem to be a little bit loose. At least 3 out of 4 so far. Okay, here's the one that's hard to get to. Let's see here. How am I going to do that? We're going to need an extension for the socket. There we go. And then yeah, see, this is a little fun to reach. And trying to hold the camera at the same time. Yeah, that's not working so well. I think I'm just going to set you guys down and I'll get this done. That might help a little. Okay, I'll get there. I'm gonna have to move you guys out the way. Well, my extension is too long. I'm hitting the apparatus that tilts the blade. I'm gonna put a shorter extension on, but I still gotta have the extension because the saw casing gets in the way at the top. I gotta get past it. Aha, there we are. And that one is loose also. So that explains why this thing was all out of whack. After being loaded in and out of a truck, I'm sure it was that was enough to do it. Now I just got to see if I can get it to tweak far enough, because they aren't really made to tweak a whole lot. They don't have a whole lot of movement. I think I'm going to take the motor off, just to get rid of the excess weight that is pushing down on the thing, keeping it from moving around the way I need it to. And since I've already got the belts off, it's a reasonably easy thing to do. Oh, except that they zip tied that, so I guess I'm going to set it up on top. Okay. Now it looks like I can move it around a little bit. I don't know if you can see that move, but it doesn't move a whole lot, but it does move. So. Well, we're already closer. So it looks like I'm going to have to move the front over the opposite direction of the back. So while I've got this here, that's one of them tightened. We're going to check it. Yeah, it didn't move from where I adjusted it to. Now let's see if we can get the front to go the opposite way. I guess that moved it. The calipers had enough friction on there to stay in place, and when I pushed on the front to push it over to match the back, they fell. So that means that getting closer. Okay, we're going to try this position. I'm going to tighten that bolt first. Getting the front into position and keeping it there while you tighten it is the tricky one, because it's a lot harder to reach up in there to do it. Okay, let's double check that. Well, looky there. So after getting it all scrambled around underneath there, that is touching there and there and there. And now back here, instead of that big gap, it's touching just like the front is. So now the blade is straight to these, and it'll cut straight without binding, hopefully, when I make a sled or whatever I do for this. So that takes care of stage one. Now let's get the top bolted down to the case. Get those bolts in and tightened up. Okay, so we're back here at the back of the saw, and I'm going to move the camera around so you can see this bolt. This is the one that is there, but you see it's right here, and it's loose. So this will actually lift up off of there. It's heavy, so I'm not doing it with one hand very easily. So I'm just going to get ratchet and socket up on there. And tighten him down. And then we got the same thing up at the front, but the front's a little different. So here's back at the front of the saw, and I'm going to slide you up here, and you see this hole right here is where the bolt that bolts the top down on. You can see the teeth or the whatever, reinforcement there. And of course that one, hey, I can't reach it this way. I thought I was going to have to get extension on it. And it's real loose. It's sticking down a good 1/4 of an inch. So we'll get it tightened up. There we go. And then over here, there's supposed to be another one, and it's missing on the other side. Right here. There's no bolt there, and there's no bolt back on the back on this side. So those two I'm going to have to get, but they're just typical 9/16 bolts, so what, 3/8 and just short. So I will make a trip to the hardware store and get a couple of them if I can't find any here. Next is the motor situation back there. So back around to the back. Okay, so as I mentioned before, the belt was getting tight in some positions and loose in other positions. So that has to be adjusted or dealt with. The first thing is to get the motor back on here. There we go. And then we'll grab the belts and put them back on. And voila. Come on, get on there. Now, these are the belts that came on this thing when my friend bought it and I went and picked it up. That's how I got the saw, by the way. These are the belts that were on it, and I think they're a bit small because it looks like it's made for 3/8 belts, and these are 1/4 inch or something like that. Anyway, I may be replacing those later on. So the way that I've always learned to do this is don't adjust your belt tension with this little knob. Let me see if I can adjust that camera so you can see that better. So this knob, or this nut on this thing, you can use to actually put tension on here and tighten it down. It'll hold the tension. But as soon as you change the height of the blade, that's going to change this, because the way this thing moves up and down. It's actually supposed to keep just enough tension on the belts just from the weight of this hanging here. So to tighten the belts, you would actually slide this out while keeping this at enough angle that it keeps tension on the belts. So what I need to do is raise the blade up all the way and then lower the blade down all the way and make sure that I stay tight the whole way, just sitting in this position loosely tightened, not actually torqued down. So we'll take it all the way down. There's all the way down. And you see how we're maxed out right here? We don't want that. So what we want to do is bring this in, or bring it out a little bit more, sorry. Had that backwards in my head. So that we've got about 1/8 of an inch of gap at the end of this metal piece in that slot. And that makes sure there's still room for tension on this, and it gives you a little bit, as the belt stretch a little bit, it can go a little further. Okay, so now we're in that position, and we're going to make it go all the way to the top to make sure we're still going to be okay. There we are, all the way at the top. Notice the belts still have tension, and this is now in a complete, well, it's not really able to be seen on the camera, is it? Let's see here. There we go. So this is now kind of in the middle of the overall length of the slot. Alright, there we go. Now you can see the darn thing. So you see how we're in the middle of it? So as this goes up and down, this shifts back and forth. So that's why this shouldn't be tightened. Because now if I tighten it here now, when I go up, it's not going to work anymore. It's going to be loose, because this nut will be clear up here, or want to be up here, and it won't be able to get there if I tighten it. So this actually doesn't need to be, but you also want to make sure that you're far enough forward that the motor still keeps the weight on the belts as it's going up and down. So there we go. That means I can tighten down the two little bolts on these rails, and voila, this table saw is now actually functional. We'll have to cut something just to see. And this is the miter gauge that came with the saw. And I don't trust it yet, so we're going to use this to set it at 90 degrees. That's actually pretty good, according to the marks on there. So with that done, we can plug the saw back in. We're done messing with the belt. I do not like where the switch is on this. I'm going to be moving that. And then let's take a nice piece of hackberry here. Put our blade to the appropriate height. And let's see what we get. Is that thing that twisted? Well, that's not going to work then. If you're going to test the cutting abilities of your saw, use a piece of wood that is not twisted, or you're going to get inaccurate readings. So give me a second here and I'll find a piece that is accurate. A million pieces of wood around here, not one I can use to test with. Ha! Here we go. Nice little piece of seed. Oh yeah, much straighter. Okay. Let's give it a shot. Where's my brain? That's way too high for this piece of wood. There we go. And voila, that works. Now we're going to put the fence over and make a rip cut. Now, since this thing is old and does not have one of the fancy fences, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this at 1 inch to the front of the blade there, and then I'm going to measure over to my miter slot, and that is 6 3/16. So then I'm going to set both ends of the fence at the back and the front of the saw to that measurement, 6 3/16. I'm going to come back here and check this. Find the tooth that's pointing to the fence. That puts me at 1 1/16, so it is out just a little bit. We want to go 6 1/8. 6 1/8. Six and an eighth to the miter slot and 1 inch. There. I'm going to take that down just a bit more and find a push stick, or something to use as a push stick, because I haven't made a push stick yet. This will do, since this is got a miter on the end. Push against that with a dowel. That'll do the trick. So here we go. Really got to get that switch repositioned. It looks like the adjustments worked. We're like right on an inch. So I'm happy with that. So next stage will be to like polish it up and neaten it up, make it look a little nicer. But other than that, I have a usable table saw again. Have to add some dust collection to it. But yeehaw! Alright guys, until next time, we'll see you.